There we go. Okay. Now we're down to the wire, folks. After this week, the only assignment left is this group project. And I've got 2 groups that have told me who they are. I've got Sadana, Jessica, Sean, and Karen in one group, and Donna, Andy, Andrea, and Mark in a second group. And Amy, I just sent you an email.
Yes, ma'am, I got it.
Did you get it? Michelle and Tara are the other 2 that need to go with you in that group. And okay. You and I may need to talk about another topic that you and I discussed a little bit in email. So we can discuss that later, okay?
Okay.
But I don't think Tara's on tonight. She may check in a little bit later. And Michelle is traveling today, but she said she was probably not going to get on tonight. She was traveling back from the coast. But I sent them both that email as well if you all want to get together on that. But you and I can have a conversation about that.
Okay.
So that's the last thing that that we've got, other than our discussion tonight about the topics that we've read about this week, and then the quiz that we'll have that'll open up tonight. And then our, let's see, we've got that little activity that's due this week that's, I don't think it's too intrusive.
Yeah, but you could cancel it.
Excuse me, what?
You could cancel it.
I could cancel it?
Yeah.
You are always on me to reduce the assignments here. I told you all along.
Hey, someone's got to stay on you.
Yeah, I'm just going with
Donna's on it.
Dr. Moore's, what he established here last summer. And if I do this again, which I probably will, I'll juice it up a little bit with more of my own take. But and I won't do a research project next time, and a research paper. But
we don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that out first. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about this this project for next week. Let's just look. Oh, Blackboard took me out. Just a second. Let's look at some of those requirements, and then we'll get into a brief discussion about this week's topics. Okay, the group assignment. Hi, Andy. How are you? I can't hear you, but I know you're there.
Ah, sorry, I was muted.
That's all right. That's all right. Okay, we'll just briefly touch on this group assignment for anybody that needs a little bit of a review. If I can get it to come up. Well, there we go. Okay, remember that you're collaborating with your classmates on creating a professional development session that's to last half a day, and you are developing a new program or enhancement of an existing program. And this was a question that that Donna had presented to me about the project that her group was looking at. Did we have to create something brand new? And no, it can be an enhancement of an existing program that benefits students with significant cognitive disabilities. Now that's the focus. We want to make sure that that we're looking at this population that we've studied this summer. So just make sure that that the project that you come up with is indeed looking at that that particular population that we've focused upon this summer. The rest of number 1 there, the benefits of the program along with supporting evidence from the professional literature should be clearly outlined as part of the overall rationale for initiating the program. And then you specify the age range for which the program is intended. Develop a program that includes evidence of support in the professional literature, has clear goals and objectives, steps in implementing the program are clearly indicated, identifies the required resources, the personnel and materials that you'll need for that project, and a means of monitoring and tracking the outcomes of the program. And then you're going to develop that in-service, whether it's a training or an information session that is meant to share the details of the program and inform and involve others in the school or district. Now remember, you can make it at the district level or you can make it at the school level. You want to identify the stakeholders and or the volunteers that have a vested interest in the success of the program, and then you're going to include all those components that you need. You want to have a visual means of presenting the information, whether it's a PowerPoint or a Prezi or a Google presentation, whatever means you want to use to present the information in a presentation format, and then 2 hands-on activities that your audience would use, your participants would use to integrate the information for the learner. And so you can have a lot of different variation there. The activities could take a lot of different forms, be as creative as you'd like to be. You've all sat through in-service professional development kind of opportunities, and you know how boring they can be. So pretend that you are the learner here, and be as creative as you can be to make this experience something that you would want to be a part of. And then you're going to turn in those handouts or resources so that I can see them. Members of the group should coordinate efforts to ensure equal division. So I don't want one person taking all the work here. I want you to have a division of labor, and the way you're going to divide that up needs to be delineated in the presentation. Assign your roles to each person and let that be part of the project. So what you're going to turn in is the PowerPoint, a copy of the handout, and a description of the activities, along with copies of any of those resources that you use. And then there's the rubric that we'll use to look at your final product. And then that's due next Wednesday, which is the last day of class. That's all you have due next week. There's no discussion board. There's no chapters to look at. There's no quiz. So this is the last thing that you have remaining for the rest of the days of the course. So you may use that discussion board that I've opened up, or any other means of communication that you'd like to use to communicate with one another. I think that one of the groups has set up a Google Doc or a Google community of some sort for communicating. Whatever works for you. If I can help you facilitate that in some way, let me know, and I'll be happy to. Most of you have worked that out on your own already, but this should be something that you can see from a leadership perspective would benefit a district that you would work with someday, working with the more significantly disabled populations. Any questions about the group project? Anybody? Okay. I take it that y'all are off and running on that. Good deal. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what we had going this week. Got 3 chapters. Assistive technology, early childhood, and transition. And we've already talked about transition quite a bit this semester. So we've kind of just capped that off here with this last chapter. I always like a discussion of early childhood and assistive technology. We touched on some also, and that's a fun exploration. We've got some good videos that are available in the resources section this week that I want you to make sure and take a look at. Some good examples of AT that are there, and some of you may have had some experiences with those sorts of AT devices already, and others of you that may be totally new to you, especially if you've been mostly a general educator. Some of that may be completely new to you, but you'll need to have some working knowledge some of those AT devices as you move forward with this element of special education. There's another video that's listed there about supported employment. It shows a young man who's working at the local Lowe's building supply store and the success he has in that environment. And then there's another one that just shows some transition services in general. So let's talk about any of those that you may have seen already that made any impressions on you. Anybody have any observations about any of the 3 chapters or any of the videos that were available to you?
I liked the video on the transition services. I can't remember what county they said they were, but the fact that a local apartment complex donated an apartment to that school or that program was amazing to me. I wish we could all have that opportunity.
Yeah.
I'd love.
And I think what's so interesting about transition is it varies so radically from place to place to place. In some places, you've got services like that are just, I mean, top of the line. Lots and lots of things available for students to learn what's next on the horizon for them. And in other places, it's very, very limited. Maybe we'll have an ARD meeting where we talk a little bit about what's next and maybe have a representative come from DARS, and that's the extent of transition services. And so the spectrum is extremely wide as to what we offer to students as far as transition is concerned. I hope that you find yourselves in places where transition is more than just a mention in an ARD committee meeting. And in fact, there are a lot of policies and procedures in place to give students opportunities for work and seeing what's out there for those next stages of life. Transition is a requirement in the law. AT is a requirement in the law. We've got to make these things available to students. We've got to discuss them. Those are legal requirements for all of our students, whether they need that next level of service or not. It's required that we have those discussions in our committee meetings and talk about what is necessary for each student. And so it's important that we don't forget those legal obligations that we have to every student to receive special education services, regardless of where they fall on that continuum of severity. Sometimes we think that AT services and transition services are only for our students who are at the severe end of the spectrum, whereas that's really not so. We've got to have that discussion for every student, regardless of where they fall on that continuum. Anybody else have any observations?
Mine was on that, the AT, the one that with the program called Tap It. Yes. I thought was really interesting. We have smart boards on our campus, and I thought that was, really high tech and handy. But seeing what the Tap It does, where you can move it down and tilt it and make it accessible for any student, no matter wheelchair, how tall, how short, whatever it is. It was a really neat program, and the no glare, the no shadow, I thought was really neat, because that's what we run into. If you're in front of the smart board, you're blocking, half of the information on there.
Absolutely.
So it was neat the way it does. You don't have the projector, so it doesn't have the same issue.
Right. Now, those videos, of course, were sales pitches as well.
Yes. Yeah. It worked.
I thought the same thing, but I thought it was a really cool product and certainly worth a look, but very accessible to all. And
I'm sure pricey.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, but something that districts need to look into as far as making all that technology available to every student. Really a cool method for service delivery. Anybody else?
Has anyone else had the experience where you know, AT is in Fort Worth. We have a whole department in the district that's, you know, if someone needs assistive technology, they send a few people down that's their job to assess. But what's interesting to me is sometimes what you think's going to help, right? What they think is going to be the thing that helps the kid, it's wrong. It's not right. They have to try a few different things. I don't know if that's common or not, but I've seen that a couple of times where they try a few different things and finally, yeah, and it's just up to the student. The student says, "I like this. This works. Okay," you know, and it works. But sometimes what you think is going to work doesn't work. You know.
I think that's a really good observation. I think that's true. And it depends a whole lot on the individual student as to what is going to work. I think that go ahead.
I know in the districts that I've been in that a lot of times it's kind of a one size fits all AT. It's like they have something that they spend a lot of money on, and so they're like, well, everybody's going to get that. And it's like, but everybody doesn't need that. But they're like, well, it's what we have, and so we're going to use it because we have to offer it. Well, just because you have it doesn't mean you have to offer it. You have to offer them something that's relevant for them, not just something that we bought because it looks cool.
Yeah, I think that you make a really good point there, Amy. We sometimes I think it's exactly what we do. We've got, here are the things we have. Now we'll make that appropriate for you because that's what's on our menu. So our menu needs to fit the student rather than creating a menu that the student might need. We have this set of things that will make fit rather than the opposite. I think that's really a good observation and so true. What do you think about the use of sign language? That was mentioned in the video of the teacher with young children. She talked about using sign language with more than just her deaf student. What about that?
We had a really big debate this year in Castleberry. One of our SPED teachers, who was a life skills teacher, was ASL certified, and she wanted to use it in class. And our principal just was not having it. She was like, you know, that's going to take the child back. It's not going to, make the child advance. And we're like, well, the child's already slightly nonverbal, but when the teacher, she kind of taught her a couple of things in sign language, and she was communicating more with her peers and with the teacher, and her behavior went down, but the principal didn't really believe in it, so she didn't want to do it. And I was surprised that our SPED department didn't stand behind, this is the intervention that's working for this kiddo, and the teacher in this instance, even though it's not something we traditionally use, why won't we just give it more of a try? Mm-hmm. And it was more this idea that if she's not going to talk as a normal child would, then we're not going to give her any opportunity to talk. That's kind of what it felt like. But I think that with sign language, I mean, we teach toddlers sign language before they can fully talk. So why wouldn't we teach, students who are nonverbal to speak that way? If it's something that, we taught our 6-year-old to say eat and cup and sleep because it was like she just didn't want to talk when she was little, and that was the easiest thing we could do without her standing and screaming at us that she wanted something. And so it makes sense to do that.
I think sign language has proved to be a very good bridge for students who are in the process of language acquisition. Most speech pathologists will tell you that it's a great way to work with students who are learning language. So I'm a big fan of sign language with kids with disabilities who are working on acquiring language. I think it's been proved to work very well with a lot of kids. So I think it's a really great strategy. Any of the rest of you have any experiences like that?
I think we have to remember that the goal is communication.
Absolutely.
Not communication in a certain way. Mm-hmm. So if we have kids that are not communicating or not communicating in a positive, just only with negative behaviors, finding a positive replacement for that is the ultimate goal, not that they speak or communicate in a way that we think they should be speaking.
Right.
And anybody who can learn some sign language would that would be helpful, because there are a lot of deaf people that you will come into contact with. And if you can even make a few signs, that would be helpful out in the community. So I can't understand why people would be opposed to it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. You know, most of us who are parents have dealt with toddlers who are frustrated because they can't let you know what they want. Mm-hmm. And with most children like that, as soon as we give them some sort of communication, it takes control of a lot of bad behavior, because when they can communicate their needs to us, tantruming and things like that seem to dissipate somewhat. When needs are communicated, some of that negative behavior usually goes away. And the same is true with kids with disabilities. When they can communicate their needs to us, some of those negative ways of behaving are not as useful anymore, as soon as some means of communication is available to them. And if sign language is that means of communication, then I'm all for it. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to take a look at our quiz here and see if we're hitting on some of the important things. We talk about this week the needs for assistive technology. Naturalistic teaching procedures. That's in the next chapter. Universal design for learning. It's a little bit on that. When do transition services begin? When we have a transition meeting, what do we want the emphasis of our discussion to be? A little bit about self-determination. I don't think there's anything on this quiz that's too difficult. I don't have too much more tonight, folks. Y'all have questions?
I actually had a question about the group project assignments. Sorry, I didn't ask it before, but the dogs were barking, so I didn't want to unmute. But in the directions, when it talks about just service delivery, is that pretty much anything? Is it instructional? I mean, related services? Is it so broad that
it's pretty broad?
Okay.
And if you've got a question about an idea, run it by me, and I'm pretty open on this. Okay.
Okay. So it could be any of that. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Just keep your focus on the population that we're working with. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else? Questions? And this will be our last Zoom meeting tonight. We're almost done, folks. It's exciting. Anybody else? All right. If we don't have any more questions, I'm going to sign us off. Okay? All right. No more questions?
Ma'am.
All right. Y'all have a good week. If you think of something, shoot me an email or give me a call. Whatever works, okay?
Kevin.
Thanks, Dr. Kevin.
Tomorrow.
Pardon me?
You want me to call you tomorrow?
You can call me tomorrow. You can call me right now.
Okay, you're in the office?
I'm in the office right now, okay?
Okay. I will call you now.
Okay.
All right.
The
All
rest of
right.
you, we'll see you. Good night.
Mark and Andy, I'll hit you with Google.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Bye.
On the Google Doc? Okay, cool.
Everybody done talking?
Yep.
Okay, we'll see you.
Bye.